Hey man, can you hear me okay? Don't have an audio on you just yet. I think his video is frozen. Let's give him some time. I'm gonna switch back to us while we figure out what's going on with Agari. Hey, can you hear me okay?
1, 2, 1, 2.
Yep, I
Ben?
can hear you. Yeah. How's it going, man?
Perfect. Good. And you?
Not bad, not bad. Your webcam is frozen. Just a heads up. I haven't brought you on the stream on purpose because your webcam is frozen on your face. I didn't know if you want that on.
Oh, I
There we
don't
go.
mind.
There we go. That's much better now. There we go.
Okay. All good.
All right, chat. Let me know if you can hear Agari fine. We're gonna get started with the interview. I want to make sure sound is good. You guys could hear him, okay?
1, 2, 1, 2. Here am I.
Awesome. Well, hey man, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your Sunday to join me. I know it's a little bit late your time, but I genuinely appreciate you being here, and I look forward to chatting with you today.
Oh, it's okay. It's not so late. It's only 9 p.m., so it's perfect for me.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, I'm very aware of who you are. I've followed your research very closely for years. I've reached out to you a couple of times. We got to actually meet in 44Con a few years ago, 2 years
Yes.
ago. So I've had the pleasure to meet you and talk with you. But for those of my viewers who have never met you, who are you? How long have you been hacking for? And what are you about?
Okay. I'm one of the old guy. I do this stuff like hacking uh, for nearly 20 years. What I do currently is mostly web application stuff. I'm a trainer for Portugal's Burp suite. I'm French. You probably noticed my accent already. I did some bounty like a lot 3 or 4 years ago. Oh, maybe 5. And then I get famous in this side of the infosec, and I don't do a lot of bounty anymore, but I'm still like fashionable in this area. Not sure why. I hope I'm still relevant.
I think you're so relevant, man. I think if anything, you're more relevant than before with all these new SSRFs coming out, right? Like your research still is applicable to today's web application, especially with what you have done with SSRF. I was going through some of your slides the other day, and I want to say 90% of that stuff is still relevant, if not 100%.
Yeah, sometimes I think that I spend like months and months or possibly years exploiting SSRF only because I was one of the first in this area. Okay, maybe it wasn't a bad choice, but I'm very glad to see all the reports containing some links or data coming from my research.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an unreal moment for me to see you, especially on the board with the Portswigger stuff for the top research of the year. Seeing you guys, becoming second and then having you guys being on that board, especially you yourself, was a little bit of a cool moment for me to see. You guys actually put me on that, especially with how much research you have done on SSRF. It was a great feeling to, it's a great feeling to see people that have experts in the field approve of your research or support your research and that kind of a thing. Um,
I think that's the point of publishing. Like, if people don't reuse your research or don't make money out of it, thanks to bug bounties, then your research wasn't probably really useful in real life. I mean.
yeah, I definitely agree. Let's jump into it. How did you get into hacking, man? Especially with web hacking. How did it start? What sparked what sparked you into this world of fun and misery at some times, I guess.
Okay, so you have to first to realize that in my old time, you can't start with web hacking
Yep.
because web was very niche and it was mostly static. There's no business online,
Okay.
no private data,
All
so
right.
it was a different game. So it started with X window tricks at the university, like changing the mouse pointer of somebody else, and that was already terrific. And then I start digging, and then I get a job in this area, like a pen tester job, and from there I spend all my professional time uh, on these subjects. And web apps, yeah, it was natural. Like everything switched to web application, including business, including social networks, including like everything. So it was the most common target we have in penetration test. So we need
Yeah.
to level up, and here we go.
So when did you start doing web hacking? Early 2000s or early
Yes,
9?
yes, something like that. I was doing some e-commerce, like buying online, very, very early, and
Uh-huh.
at that time you had bugs, which were incredibly stupid. Like you want to order minus four something, and then you get a negative price, and the items get shipped nonetheless. For example,
Yeah.
so it was very, very early.
How did you hear about bug bounties? I know you were very, very active in the early years of bug bounties. How did you hear about these different platforms and bug bounty programs?
So, in fact, I get some money for bugs before bug bounties because I had like two specialties. It's less true nowadays. It was fuzzing, so automatically looking for security bugs,
Okay.
and web app. And the bugs, the memory corruption bugs, I found on the fuzzing side. I was monetizing them through ZDI and iDefense and similar. I mean, those are the only two decent ones. So with them, and so when Mozilla starting to offer money for web bugs, it was just a different target. Okay, you can get money for fuzzing bugs, and
Yeah.
now you can get money for web bugs. And this was the beginning of bug bounty. So I was here. Uh, Doing non-web stuff before the bug bounty, so I was ready to jump when it started.
And how did when you got into bug bounties and just not bug bounties alone, just web hacking in the early days, how did you learn these topics? Was it just purely going after targets that you had? Was it just, installing your own scripts and finding vulnerabilities? How did you learn? How did you become, how did you keep, how did you improve your skills over time?
Good question. It's a good question, but my answer will not be relevant to today people because there's a lot of resources nowadays,
Yeah.
and the situation was quite different. First, my English was bad. I mean, even worse than nowadays. And I was reading only French books.
Okay.
So there's a huge delay. So my first advice would be practice your English because content in English would be much more fresh than anything in your local language.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at that time, it was mostly books. Like you had a few books you cherish. You read every page like 10 times. For example, the web happy. What's the name?
Web application
Web.
hackers handbook.
Yeah, this one. So that was my favorite book. Sorry, and then practicing. I was a penetration tester, so I had different targets every weeks with a lot of different technologies. So
Mm-hmm.
it was very, I mean, it's a very good environment to learn. Like being a pen tester, it's a good choice in the early times because you would see a lot of diversity and you can't select your own targets. So that's interesting exercise.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked how you got started, you mentioned that back when you were starting, there weren't a lot of good resources out, right? And I could relate to that even up to 5, 6 years ago. When I got into bug bounties and I was hungry to learn more, there weren't that many. There wasn't a WebSec Academy, a Hacker 101. There wasn't a, you know, pen tester lab. It wasn't that big. It wasn't no try hack me. It was a few. There was DVWA and Google made that
Yeah.
XSS thing, right? And Metasploitable, maybe it was back then, but
Yeah,
that was it, right?
Metasploitable was a great step forward. And if you look nowadays how good Metasploitable is, it's really bad compared to Juice Shop, for example,
Yeah.
that you can start in 2 seconds in a Docker container locally. I mean,
Hmm.
it's day and night, literally.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of resources. So I think, like, people that nowadays say, I don't know how to get started, I don't know where to start. I mean, there's tons of free resources. Imagine how that would have been 10 years ago, right? My way of learning was, there was a site called, it was some script site. I don't remember what it was called. It was very popular back then. It was like this white site with like red graphics on it. You can go and download any scripts from any language you wanted to. So they had them categorized from ASP to PHP to whatever language you wanted. You can go in there and look for galleries, CMS, whatever you wanted to do. I would download those, install them locally, and just find vulnerabilities and just sit on it. And because I didn't know how to report it, right? You could have gone the path of dropping an O day or just keeping it to yourself and keep learning. And that was like my way of practicing. Yeah, someone said mailworm. Yep, exactly. Stroke would email you back and say your bug is approved. But like there wasn't that many resources. So I kind of wanted to hear if you had similar experience with your learning. But let's fast forward to bug bounties. When you found out about Ssrf or other vulnerability types, how do you master them? How do you how did you research on them to learn everything about this particular vulnerability type?
Hmm. So first, something which is not visible from the outside, but which surprised a lot of people interacting with me, it's I'm very slow. Like I'm super slow
We
at
all are,
finding
my friend. We
bugs.
all are. Everybody has their own pace.
Yeah, I need to. I mean, I'm not a recon guy. I like to go to www.target.com or developers.target.com, read the documentation, look at my proxy story, and I never found the bugs in, let's say, 2 hours. Like never. It took me 1 day, 2 days, even to find XSS on the front page. So in this aspect, I'm very bad. But yeah, going through the documentation, I don't remember your question exactly. Um,
No, I mean it makes sense. I mean, you don't have to always do recon to jump into all these. What I was asking is, how do you found out about SSRF 5-6 years ago, and you wanted to become really good at it. How did you do
oh
that?
yeah. Sorry, I was far from answering this question. So my favorite way to improve in a specific area is to set up a lab. First, a vulnerable one, like that I download from somewhere, and try to replicate the tools, analyze the traffic in Burp Suite, try to replicate myself, maybe patch the tool, add an option, something, and then try to write my own vulnerable code, and then the patch version. And then you will discover plenty of things, like you can bypass this countermeasure, or this code looks vulnerable, but this totally unrated piece of code will prevent exploitation, things like that. I mean, I really like to interact myself with the vulnerability. And then you need to go to real life because it's always different from the lab. So that's when you can harden your skills and really prove yourself.
Got it. So I think something that stood out to me is the fact that you wrote your own code, and you would probably filter or blacklist, whitelist, whatever, and then try to break those blacklist, whitelists, and then keep building on top of it. So not only you know how to create the vulnerable code, not only you know how to fix these things now, you also were, as an attacker, trying to break it because you had access to that, and that was your way of getting better. And then when you say you went to the real world, you mean like just bug bounties, right? And going and looking for things that may be
Yeah.
vulnerable to SSRF.
Yeah, it has a very good recent example. NorthSec, the conference in Montreal,
Hmm.
was happening yesterday and the day before, and Philippe Artaud made a talk about Unicode vulnerability, and he looked at Unicode conversion in nearly all languages, and then you get much better at source code auditing. You will recognize the behavior from black box situation. Oh, this is C# because of this specific situation, and that's really uh, digging deep in vulnerabilities, and that's a good way, I think, to master something. So if the people watching us want to give a look to this talk, it was an Northec just 2 days ago about Unicode vulnerabilities, and really that describe a very good way to to maximize your knowledge about a specific vulnerability family.
Yeah, let's talk about SSRF in general.
Yep.
What are some tips for people that are trying to learn SSRF? What would you say to do? Guys, like for example, both Hacker 101 and Website Academy have really great resources on SSRF. Website Academy, I've seen some really cool stuff on SSRF, from the basics to some of the entry level stuff. What's next? Do you have any resources you recommend? Your slides, for example, that you have done. Do you have any talks online that you have done on SSRF that people could watch?
Yeah, on my corporate website, there's a publication section with every talk I gave linked from there.
Okay.
But it's still, yeah, it's a bit old, so there's no like very fresh exploitation subtleties, but the general like what is SSRF, where should you look for this kind of vulnerabilities, what is IP encoding, this kind of stuff. This is covered in my slides. There's probably one video in English and one in French on this subject on YouTube. And if your question is how to get really good, I think that once you cover the basics, so what you described, like let's say Websec Academy, Hacker 101, possibly my slides, which are quite old, then you can see what is state of the art, which is a good way to mention your own research
Yeah.
uh, on PDF generators. And this is the current state of the art. Like it's adapting the general methodology we all know of to specific and possibly hardened targets. That for me is like what Orange Sci did with
Jenkins and the VPNs.
URL parsing and stuff like that. This is the state of the art for SSRF.
Yeah, it makes sense. Let's talk about just security research. SSRF was something that you picked as a topic to do security research on. How do you select your topics to do your research? Is it a personal thing because you want to learn it, or is it because of a trend in the community? How do you pick what to research and present on?
First, it's not the trend thing because if it's already trendy, it's already too late to be on of the, I mean one of the first one. So it's a bit late for me. I mean I prefer to be researching like early subjects. Most of the time it was plain luck, like. How to say, I had a specific target in professional engagement, like XML or URL parsing or whatever. I need to research this area for my job, and then I discover I really like this kind of subject, and then I keep digging, and that may be enough to do a talk a few months later.
Very cool. Um, so when you do security research, do you do them all independently, or do you reach out people that are, possibly experts in the field? How does that look?
Huh. For research, it's how to say that, until you publish something, it's hard to interact with other researchers,
Yeah.
because they can't state, I mean, they can't evaluate your own skill level. And but once you publish in one area, it's very easy to establish contact with other people in the same niche, and then it get much faster. I mean, it goes much faster because they have very good ideas that could, how to say, validate or invalidate yours. Like great discussions.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. When it comes down to working with others, it's hard to reach out to someone randomly and say, "Hey, can you help me with my research?" when you have never published your own, right? So having that reason to give them like, "Hey, example research that I've done," point them out, and then you can kind of collaborate. I'm curious to understand or hear from you, like when you were first doing your security research, were there any mentors, inspirations, anybody you looked up to in the community that inspired you, for example, to do any security research? Or was it just purely your own curiosity?
Um, there's still nowadays people I really look forward to their research and they inspire me. In the old days, it was a bit different. Like the people I was admiring were out of my league. Like I was a perfect noob, and there were people like writing exploit for Cisco routers and stuff like that, and so it was like a target, but like a very, very, very remote target. And nowadays, I have probably a better understanding of my own skills, and I'm more realistic about what is possible. And but I still have people I really respect a lot, and with who we have like a very good discussion, like two people, one table, one beer, and you can spend hours discussing a very narrow subject, and we love it.
I think we had one of those in when we were both in London. I think we
Yes.
spent endless hours at that random, restaurant from like 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. with drinks and just talking about with hacking. I definitely could relate to that, and
And applying hacking to the local TV, if you can remember.
yes, I do not forget the TV behind us. Yes, so people that are watching. So I met Agari in during 44Con 2 years ago, and a couple other hackers who showed up. We were all sitting at a random place drinking and having fun, and there was a TV behind us, and then we had a remote on our phone, and we were just changing the channel, and the music was really annoying, so we turned it off because we were the only ones in the outside patio, anyways. That was a fun time. Let's talk about Burp. You're very, very involved in Portswigger and Burp Suite. Am I correct?
You are very.
You're very involved with Burp Suite.
Yeah, sure. Sure. That's currently my main professional task. That's
Okay.
where I put most of my time, and this is being the. I mean, I hope one of the best trainer on this subject on the world, in the world. But let's see how the competitors behave.
So tell me about it. What made you want to do a training on Burp?
Oh, in fact, it's a weird story. I mean, it's a weird story, not so weird. But I was invited to give a talk to OWASP AppSec Europe, and being invited to give a talk, so you bypass the CFP and
Mm-hmm.
everything. It, I mean, it's hard to say no. So
Yeah.
I say yes, but they had no decent subject. So I was mourning in my house, like, wow, what should I do? What should I cover? And my wife told me that I spend my time on Burp Suite. Maybe I could talk about Burp Suite. And I was like, no, 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 that's totally impossible. That's not some research. It's just some tooling. I want to present some research. And in fact, it was a good idea. So I did a talk on Burp Suite tip and tricks, and it was very, well received.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start giving workshops, like 2-hour and 4-hour workshops in Switzerland for a conference. And then Porttrigger creating their training offer, I mean their selection of trainers, and they invited me, and I was glad to join. And here we go.
Are any of your older workshops or sites available for anyone to check out when it comes down to Burp Suite?
I think so. One is in French, so it's probably not very useful. But recently, I published a blog post with exactly the same subject that one of these workshop, which is
Oh,
managing sessions in Burp Suite. Let me check. I will just open my blog. Yes, the last blog post is titled Intruder and CSRF Protected Form Without Macros, and describing how to do that in Burp Suite without resorting to the usual macro stuff, which is frightening for plenty of people.
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I have a pretty good French following, so I think the French hackers who are in the chat are enjoying this, knowing that you have some content for them to view. Let's keep talking about Burp Suite. What is your recommendation for somebody who wants to learn how to use Burp properly as a beginner? What do you recommend them doing? Is it the Web Application Hackers Handbook still relevant, do you think? Because they teach you a lot of that stuff, right? Or is it just purely, outside of just go do it, what is a good way to learn how to use Burp properly?
Hmm.
As someone as
So,
a trainer as yourself would recommend.
mm, um, I don't train people to start with Burp. I mean, 99% of my trainees are people using it full time for months or years.
Okay.
But as a beginner, I would say that the Web Application Hacker Handbook is a very good start because it covers the web app stuff with nearly perfect one-to-one mapping to Burp features. So in this aspect, it's quite good. Possibly the online documentation could do that too. I know they invested quite a bit on the online documentation, but I didn't spend so much time on it.
Okay.
And of course, after that, practicing, like yeah.
Do you have any favorite Burp plugins that you recommend for new web hackers or not even new, just any web hackers that this should use? Any favorites that you want to shout out?
uh, Only one. It will be hard. There's
Not just one, any,
tools.
as many as you, if you
Okay,
want to give me 5, 6, 10, man, up to you.
perfect. Okay, so Logger to see everything emitted from Burp, including the scanning traffic from Burp itself and from extensions. So that's very important for me. Up until very recently, JSON beautifier something, but it's now a core feature. So we are good. HackVector, which allow conversion from anything to anything. I use
What
it
was that one called
to
again?
HackVector.
Okay.
HACK
Vector.
Vector.
Yeah.
That's from one of the Portugal employee. I will just pass the
Yeah,
link.
it's on the chat is just dropping it in there. I just want to make sure I get that right. Okay.
Yeah,
From Gareth?
give me one sec.
Yeah, IRSDL is in there, so that's the one that
Here we
Garrett
go.
wrote, correct? Yeah, okay.
So I just pushed the link to the chat. What else? I should have my own slides open. Because yeah, so in my training, I make two categories of extensions. There's extensions which solved one specific need, like AWS signer that will sign S3 requests, for example. And there's also meta extensions. Meta extensions are extensions that you can use in a lot of different contexts, and they are a very good way to avoid coding your own extension for this very specific need. So since meta extensions exist, including Logger++, HackVector, and more, I nearly don't need to code my own extensions anymore. So that's something I push during my training in order to avoid to people to the need to code their own extensions.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Logger++. JSON Beautifier is now in the core Burp Suite
Yep.
tool set. HackVector, AWS Signer, anything else that stands out to you that you think people should definitely have, they should at least use or give it a try?
I probably forgot something. Yeah, I will pass links after the talk on the chat. There's probably some good ones I'm missing.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I pretty much asked this questions from all my guests, you know, and you including, because you do a Burp Suite training, so you probably have some really cool plugins that you can recommend to hackers to use based on, you know, all the needs that you have seen, all the questions you have received, and all the workshops you have done. And it also helps hackers realize like what things they're missing, you know, what things they're missing to use during their bug bounty or during their web hacking that could, you know, help them be more efficient, find better vulns, or even process their data better. So I want to ask that, and if you have anything later on, I would love to get your feedback on it, and I can later on give it to the entire group to follow as well.
I can answer quickly, like about optimizing your workflow in Burp Suite.
Okay.
There's two things which are really useful, and that most people tend to avoid because the learning curve isn't so gentle. The first one is a keyboard shortcut. There's plenty of shortcuts for, like, there's more than 100 shortcuts in Burp Suite, and all the basic stuff should be done in milliseconds using only the keyboard. Are you a Burp user yourself?
Yeah, I use a lot of Command R, Command D, Command Shift T, Command Shift R to go back to repeater and go to decoder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one of the most common tasks is, I mean, not the most common task, but a very frequent one is you are in proxy story and you want to do something like change the value in a repeater.
Yep.
You can do everything using shortcuts, and it will take less than 1 second. And when I see people reaching the mouse, opening the contextual menu, clicking on the repeater, going to the repeater tab, etc., it's like wasteful.
It is.
And when I'm hacking, I really want to have IDs, to test my IDs as fast as they happen. So I really value short feedback loops, including shortcuts. And the second aspect is automation via session handling rules. Like you can enter one value in a form somewhere, and maybe it will pop somewhere else in a second part of the web application. That's something I want to automate. And then I can easily see on the left part of my screen the injection point, the request, and on the right side, another part of the website, like showing the last 10 messages or something like that. That's something it's not so hard to do. And when you master that, it's very generic and you can reuse it everywhere.
Yeah, just like the biggest thing for me, like the first thing I ever learned with shortcuts on Burp was Control or Command F to forward the request. And then the next one I learned was Command or Control R to send it to repeater as I'm doing, FR, going back and forth with it. And then eventually I picked up on more and more and more and more. I'm sure there's more shortcuts on there. But yeah, I'm the same way. It pains me to see people right click, send to repeater, click on repeater. And yeah, I totally understand that. I totally get it. Very cool. Yeah, I really wanted to understand. I wanted to get some insight on Burp Suite and kind of understand, being a trainer yourself, how to eventually use it. Which I think kind of I use it efficiently. I don't use a lot of Burp Suite plugins at all. I want to say I don't think I use any Burp Suite plugins at all because
Already?
yeah, I don't have any. I think I have Logger Plus Plus maybe. I don't use Burp as much. I only use Burp when I fuzz. I go into it, send it to a repeater, and just sit there for hours at a time. Or maybe Intruder when I want to, brute force for something or find something specific. But I hear everybody saying, all these different cool plugins, and I'm sitting here like, I wonder how much this would change my hacking if I were to get more efficient using these Burp Suite plugins.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how much time you spend on Burp Suite. If you are doing mostly recon and going after CVE and stuff like that, you don't really need Burp unless for debugging something, the script is not working, something like that. If on the opposite, you are focusing on the core logic of the main web app, then it's probably quite relevant to see
Yeah.
all the details and to log everything to be able to go back in time and correlate this input to that behavior and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask this question even though I don't like asking it. Someone in chat said, what are your thoughts on Zap versus Burp?"
No idea.
No. Have you
No
used
idea.
Zap?
Oh, like every 2 years, I start Zap just because people keep asking this question. And after 10 minutes, I'm so unproductive on Zap because like my brain is wired on Burp shortcuts and concepts and everything that I can't give a decent opinion. I mean, it should be better to ask a total newbie to both tools,
Yeah.
spend 1 month with each, and then ask him the question.
No, I agree. I think they're both built for different hackers, and also one is free, one's not free. So the differences are going to be huge because someone's getting professionally paid to make all these versus something that's open sourced. Um, I have a couple of questions about your background, if you don't mind. I completely forgot to ask you this. What is your background like? Did you go to school for computer in any way, or were you just self-taught and wanted to learn about computers in general? How did that happen?
My parents considered I had to go to the university, and that looks a good idea. But they had no idea what to do. So I first went from some electronic studies, like transistors and electrons and stuff like that. It was boring as hell. And one of the how to say that area was computer science, and that was much more fun than everything else. So I quit this. No, what happened? No, I went to the diploma, and after that I switched to computer science, and I have a master in computer science, and with some like network related options. But you need to keep in mind that at that time you don't have any specialties in information security or anything like which is common nowadays.
Do you have any certificates like OSCP or I hate to ask CEH or anything like that?
I had one, but the one that you had to renew. So I lost it. It was ISO Risk Manager. So it's very far from technical hacking. That was needed for my last job as an employee. Like so, they insist for me to get this certification, and I got it. It was useful to prove to executive people. I wasn't just a dumb keyboard monkey. But outside of that, it wasn't very useful.
Do you think that it's helpful for hackers to go after certificates like CEH, offensive security certificates? What is your take on it? Do you think it's something needed? It's a
Good
hard question,
question.
I know.
What to say? I mean, if we focus only on bug bounties, maybe it's not so useful because you will be, I mean, it's not useful as a signal. It's useful to harden your skills, but you can do that somewhere else. But you don't need any signal in bug bounties. You just need good reports and crazy bugs and you are done. If you want to work in the industry, like a penetration tester, for example, it could be good to have certifications just to go through the initial HR people. However, it's always better to get a job without going through HR and because you know somebody in the technical team. That should be the way to get a proper job.
Yeah, I think definitely reaching out to someone on that team on LinkedIn, for example, to tell them you want to apply for a job is an easier way to get around the HR team. But I think like I've never taken my OSCP to be honest. I did everything backwards. I learned hacking and then I got interested in OSCP just recently. I kind of think that it does help to get the hacker mentality, if that makes sense. But I don't think it's a requirement. You can learn all of that stuff on your own without paying for the certificate, right? There's so many free resources out nowadays that you don't need to rely on these different certs.
Yeah, in the old times, one of the interest of certifications was that they provide a training environment. Like we were paying for, I mean, something similar to websec academy, which is totally free right now, was a very good reason to spend your money because you have a live target that you can practice on, because it was, I mean, that's look like the very old times. But nowadays, nearly every computer you buy and every computer you can game on can host 3, 5 virtual machines, and you can have your own full laboratory with a Windows AD and a bunch of file servers and databases in your own PC. In the old time, we were running free A6 computers, and it was very good to pay for targets being hosted online and working all the time.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I never thought of that. Years ago, it wasn't as easy to have your own labs versus, now you probably could spin up your own labs. And like you mentioned, with Docker and everything around, it's one click at this point. Yeah, I agree. What about programming? What's your background in programming? Are you a developer of any kind? Do you know any languages that you're really proficient in? Do you think it's required to be a programmer to become someone that's doing pen testing or just bug bounty on web?
Um, Required? Probably no, because if I say yes, somebody will give me a proper counter example. But I still think it's invaluable to be able to program. Um, so one of the common argument is you will understand the mistakes of the other side, like the developers of your target application. But for me, this is far from being the most important side. For me, programming allows you to automate
Yeah.
anything, like even basic stuff. Like the last program I wrote is a 10-line shell script which download videos from Twitter,
Yeah.
and that's perfect, that's useful, that's I can just paste a Twitter URL, a tweet URL, and get the video timestamp in a directory. It's relevant only to me, and that's why I need to code it myself. So it's not a security related example, but the same for anything security.
Yeah.
Like Python, there's so many things you can expand, patch, just because Python is not black magic to you. Yeah, I think programming is really useful. And Tom Num Num videos on Bash scripting are quite good because it teach you how to write simple, minimalist script and that you can reuse every day for, I mean, depending on your specific needs.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Somebody asked. I'm going through the questions on the in the chat. Ed Overfor really wants to know what's your favorite French expression.
Uh, can we say bad words?
Oh yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you feel like, my friend.
So I think that la putain de sa mère is a good one.
Your mother is yeah.
Your mother is a
Yep.
prostitute. Yep, this one is good.
Putain de merde is what your favorite. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
putain de merde. That's something all my Italian friends keep saying in French. That's the only sentence they know. I'm looking.
What about bouge ton cul?
Bouge ton cul, like move your ass,
Yep.
like correct. Your accent is not perfect. I'm looking at the chat. I can provide the proper pronunciation. So, fils de pute, vive la France, merde.
There is
Okay.
some yeah. There's I used to I used to speak French up until I moved to the U.S. The first language I ever learned was French. I had a French teacher back home that schooled me for 10 years. So I still understand when people talk to me in French. I have French Canadian friends and Yassine who's Moroccan speaking French also. When they talk shit, I understand what they say. I just can't talk it back. So that's why I enjoyed that question from Ed because why not? Let's have some fun with it. Let's
So
see.
next time we meet, I will ask. I mean, I will force you to practice your French speaking skills. Like I will
That'll be
pretend.
fun. Yeah, I'll be fun, man. My sister-in-law is French, so she talks to me in French when we speak, and I talk to her in English back because I still can't. I can't make my brain function in French anymore. I go directly to English now. But I'm up for it, man. I'm definitely up for that next time we get some drinks. Um, let's see what else. Is there any new message you would like to give to the new hackers? Any word of advice, recommendation, advice, anything you want to give out to people that are watching this video and look up to you and want to become a security researcher, a web hacker, bug bounty hunter, pen tester, whatever that is?
Okay, only one advice. You have only one reputation. So be decent. Try to not do illegal stuff. I mean, illegal stuff, you see what I mean? I mean, I don't mind if you smoke joint or stuff like that, but build a clean reputation. Yeah, that's invaluable because if you look like somebody you can't trust, you will miss opportunities. Like it will not be apparent because simply people will not reach to you. If you look technically good and professional and ethically correct, then you will have opportunities because people will reach you to offer them.
That's a very good advice, man. That's one of the, it's a very well put advice. Um, there is a lot of good hackers out there that are great at the technical stuff, but very hard to approach. I've seen them make weird comments and also doing illegal shit doesn't help you, especially when you want to be a security researcher. It's very, very good advice. I appreciate that.
The guy, what his name? Behind the WannaCry kill switch. What his name?
Malware tech blog?
Excuse me?
Malware tech blog?
Yeah. He had a long read on him recently in the New York Times or something like a big journal, a big newspaper. And if you read the story, Marcus Hutchins. If you read the story, he did some bad things because he met the wrong people at the wrong time. He get manipulated by these bad people and he did bad shit. And that earned him for years. And he spent time in jail for stuff which was very old. So it's very hard to say, okay, I did stupid things because I was young. Yeah, that will follow you for years. The internet, do not forget. People in this area are very good at
digging you up.
checking backgrounds. I mean, that's their job most of the time. So don't expect to fly under the radar and just be. And it's not only about illegal things. It's really being clean.
Yeah. Yeah, the reputation thing is very important because you can't get that back once it gets out in the public that you have done something wrong. It's hard to get it deleted on the internet. People
Yeah.
don't forget. Yeah, that's a good place to go. I agree. It's a good advice. Somebody else asked, they would love to hear how you have adapted to your Ring Zero course with virtual representations.
Um, that will be a personal answer. When I realized that on-site training were dead for months or possibly years, and this is my stake currently, uh, I was depressed, like totally depressed, like I can't do anything, get up in the morning, do nothing, go for a nap, do nothing, go back to bed next day. 14 days like that. And then I realized that it should be possible. I mean, I start interacting with other professional trainers who were already doing online trainings or who were thinking about switching to online trainings. We spent hours discussing the subject on tons of different channels. And then I start considering that it was doable. And so it was like 2 months ago. And so back to the question, what changed for online training? First, everything is hosted in the cloud, and every trainee get access to a cloud-hosted workstation with Burp properly configured. I mean, as I like it, autocrom to do the browser side stuff, and then we have people will probably be working from home. So we have 3 hours live session in the morning, and then people can work on the challenges. So that's day 1. Day 2, same thing. Day 3, people can work from their own. So they can, I'm available, but they can spend their time on challenges. And then we continue for the 2 other days. And one of my critical need was to be able to see the screens of my trainees. So the online workstation solves this need. I have VNC access to their screen, so I can see what they are doing. It's not to track them, it's just to be able to debug their setup. So we hope to have something nearly as good as in real life, and we will compensate with a lot of time given to students on the chat, on the platform. So they have access to the platform for 3 weeks. I probably forgot some stuff, like I reorganize the content to make it more modular.
Yeah.
I mean, that's months of work in the pipe.
Any up and coming research that we should expect? Do you have a new topic you want to research, or are you not focused on research at the moment?
To be honest, I'm totally focused on making my training virtual, and that will probably consume all my time for a few months. So don't expect absolutely anything from me on the research side. For example, Nafi invited me on a bug the other day, and I had a crazy vector, and I didn't investigate. I mean, the bug itself was closed because of Nafi, but the lead I got, I didn't investigate. So no, I don't do any research right now.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I think taking a break is definitely healthy. It's just people that are, asking if I should expect anything new or where to look for it.
Yeah, there's still subjects which trigger me, but like exactly the situation I described with Nafi, it was like, oh fuck, I want to investigate this feature. This looks sexy, but it's just somewhere in my to-do list.
Somebody's saying, I don't know if you've already explained this, but could you ask about self-developed Burp plugins and what areas of research you suggest to pursue?
What is the first part of the question?
could you ask about self-developed Burp plugins? Is there and what areas of research you would suggest? Let's go to the second part of it. I don't understand the first, but for the second part, do you have any recommendation for people that are new to security research? Any areas they should focus on? Any advice?
No, no. I mean, that's something that I mean, uh, if you want to do some good research, you want to have sweat and tears. I mean, you want to be deep inside, and you want to invest a lot. And it's really hard at least for me to do that if I didn't select the subject myself. So I don't see how could I give you advice on which research you should do. What I can do is I mean it's um, how to say that. Um, there are some things which are true every time. Like
Mm-hmm.
for the last 20 years, they were true. Like everything which is interpreted somewhere is an interesting area. Like when SQL injection were invented, um we have to invent LDAP injection later, and that was a mistake. We should have been able to generalize and take some meta view and say, okay, it's not SQL injection. It's I inject somewhere in a context which is interpreted later, and then we would have discovered SQL injection and command injection and everything at the same time, and we would have been able to better train people to to the global family of vulnerability. I mean, of data interpretation, whatever SQL injection or command injection.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to security research, there isn't a generic advice you can give someone other than just pick a topic you really want to learn about and learn everything and everything out there about it, and then take it a step further. Find more stuff that people haven't talked about, or the ideas that are not fully developed. They're there, but no one's really publicly talked about it and owned that. I think that's a good way to get started in security. But you're absolutely right. You can't just tell someone what to research because we're all different. We all have different background, different passions, different knowledge, and different interests, right? So it makes a difference.
But you need to have something different from other people. I mean, if you do the same research at the same time with the same focus, you will get the same results, or maybe worse ones. So if you know one specific like. If you need to learn something for other reasons and you can apply this knowledge to your field, that's a difference with your competitors. Like if you know, I don't know, I don't have any good example.
No, I mean, I'll give you an example of my own because it's something I could definitely relate to. The SSRF thing for me, when SSRF been around for what 6, 7 years now, right? But people have talked about SSRFs when it comes down to just pointing an endpoint to another website and then building on top of it, whitelisting, blacklisting, doing different things. Nobody had done the SSRF thing on PDFs, publicly at least. There wasn't a lot of examples. There weren't a lot of real life examples of it. And I really wanted to see every possible scenario of hacking a PDF generator. So I made it my point to only hunt for those bugs for a very long time, look for those, and also find my own vulnerabilities in different libraries to prove a point that there are vulnerabilities in at a scale, and also put that out building on top of your research. It's the same concept as what you did with SSRF, but it's just taking it a step different, bringing my flavor of SSRF from a different point of view, from a bug bounty hunter, offensive hacker, whatever that is.
Yeah, you are totally right. In order to do new research, you don't need a new subject.
Yeah.
That's a very critical part because finding a new subject, like I have no recipe. It happened to me for SSRF, but I have no guarantee I can reproduce that. But reading all the good stuff on a specific subject, applying, working in a lab, you will already be nearly at the state of the art, which is
Yeah.
the very best place to be to find innovative stuff, because maybe you will apply to a niche language and you will find something, or you will test something on a specific hardware or target you have at your job, and you will have your first CVE ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that nowadays, with all the content which is published, getting state of the art on one area, I mean, one family type, is doable. Like, not easily, but not very hard. And from
Yeah.
there, you can innovate like you did with SSRF.
Yeah, it's the innovation and thinking outside the box and the creativity that makes your research unique. You just have to bring that to the table and just, find a way that you're passionate about it and just go after it, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have a real target with where all your current techniques are not working, that's a very good motivation. Like it happened to me quite often. I mean, all my blacklisting research was done because the target wasn't accepting my previous bypass. So I need to level up and try new bypasses.
Yeah. Yeah, a very good advice again, as always. Very impressive stuff. One last question that I completely forgot to ask you about is: are you familiar with the term imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Do you deal with it still to this day? Do you deal with it? And if you do, how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it?
I think that knowing the term is already helpful. It's like procrastination. When I learned that this concept that I believe I was the only one experimenting was called procrastination, that then it went much easier. Like, it's not me who is bad and stupid and dumb. It's something which could happen. There's no ways to fight against procrastination. You are not alone, etc., etc. Same for imposter syndrome. Yeah, you feel dumb and shit, but you are not alone, and there's even a name for that. So it's already good. And how I feel it is that I do some research. I mean, anything that I'm proud of, my proudness will quickly decrease. Like, I do something, like tonight I will hack something. Oh, tomorrow morning I can boast to anybody I'm super proud of myself. In 3 days it was, yeah, not so hard. And in 2 weeks is, oh yes, it was, yeah, easy. I mean, not easy, but nearly easy. And then the past accomplishment disappear. It's like in Tetris, like the problem stays and the accomplishment disappear.
That's very well said, man. Your
It's not mine.
answers.
It's not mine.
No, but the answers, the way you answer them has been very helpful. I just looking at the chat, I appreciate the answers. It's been very, very fun. I would like to wrap the interview up with what I do with every other interview. Play a game. I ask you about your bug bounty experience. If you can't relate to it, you can just say pass on the question. And then the second part, I like to play a word game when I give you a word, and then you react to it and tell me the first thing that comes to your mind, whether it's a word or sentence, whatever you want to say. You ready? Let's start with the bug bounty stuff. Do you remember what the first bug bounty program you ever hacked on?
Yahoo.
Do you remember what first vulnerability you found?
XXC.
Do you remember how much that was?
2K.
Do you remember if you spend that money on anything fun to celebrate?
So more than one word. I got money from bugs before bug bounties, as I said before. So the celebration was done on the money from memory corruption bugs. And yes, I bought a kitchen and I bought a bike with bugs money.
That's really cool. Let's see, what else do I have in? What's your favorite bug type? I know the answer, but
You know the answer. No, to be honest, I like IDOR too.
do you?
But you can't publish anything on IDOR. Like, I replace a number with another number.
Pretty much, right? Is there any hackers you collaborate or researchers you collaborate with in the past? This is the right
Yes,
time to give shout outs. If you want to give anybody a shout out, this is the right
oh,
place.
there's a French hacker called One More, with who I spent a few nights
He
on.
works with Yes We Hack, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So he spent a lot of time on targets, much more than me, and we spent quite some time on Verizon. I mean, at that time, Yahoo, and it was a nice. I mean, we had some very big compromise. Cool bugs. I can see that BitK is on the chat. Hi,
BitK's in
BitK.
here.
We don't spend so much time together, but I know it's very good. Sometime Nafi ping me because something he consider I could help on. Most of the time is wrong. Like I don't think I never scored a bug for Nafi, but we chat anyway from time to time.
He also mentioned
Um,
you in this list when I interviewed him last week. You were on his list for this thing. So he also
yeah.
mentioned you. Are there any hackers you would want to collaborate with that you haven't gotten the chance to?
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, my plan for this summer was to go to Vegas. Abusing your invitation to HackerOne live event and collaborate to everybody, like
Oh,
being like a free resource to anybody, just to experiment that. But given the current pandemic, that will be like difficult.
probably next year, hopefully. Yeah, that would be very hard to do. Anyone in particular you would like to shout out that you would like to work with?
Yeah, I mean, all the great mind, like the team of Stock looks good. Like every member looks interesting to work
Yeah.
with. Um
Shout out to
yeah,
Disturbance.
yeah. Most of the big name you can think of, I would appreciate to work with them. Sure.
Awesome. Besides Burp Suite, do you have any favorite tools for hacking?
Python.
All right, fair enough. Let me see. I think any hobbies, by the way. What do you do outside of tech? How do you relax, and what are some hobbies you enjoy?
I'm a professional napper, so I nap every day. Now I live in the south of France, so we are lucky enough to have a very comfortable weather.
Nice.
So I spend quite some time outside, gardening, or I mean, simply enjoying my hammock and stuff like that. And I mean, it's either I'm alone on the countryside and then it's gardening and yeah, nature, or I go to cities for conferences and then it's socialization and parties and
Ah.
whatever abuses are accepted in the local city and yeah, meeting people and building memories.
Yeah. I'm not much of an outdoor guy, but I can definitely attest to your the conference thing. Just seeing you at the conference was very, very cool. Let's do the second part. I'll throw you a word. First thing that comes in your mind. Let's start with Burp Suite, the tool.
Training.
Portswigger, the company.
Yeah. Yeah, British.
Zap Proxy.
Open source.
SSRF.
Reputation.
IDOR.
Easy.
XXE.
uh, um, Extensible.
Bug bounties.
Paid on impact.
Recon.
Boring stuff.
HackerOne.
First in the market.
Google. Hard one.
Needed evil.
Python.
Useful.
Albino wax.
Great mind.
IRSDL.
Nice research.
And last but not least, NAFI.
Crazily good.
Very well said. I agree with that. Well, hey, before I end this call, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, man. This was a lot of fun. We don't get to talk that often, but I appreciate these random chats with you, whether it's here and in person. And I look forward to seeing you again when this crazy stuff's happening, and we can get together at a conference and share some drinks and talk about hacking.
Yeah, sure. Something which is missing now is, the community. I mean, interacting physically with the community. It will be hard to wait months or more, but I can imagine that when we will be able to meet back, to meet again, it will be like huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to add before we get off this call?
No, thanks for having me. Oh, yes, something. Let's do some advertising.
Go for it.
I will have a Q&A session with Integrity on Twitter
Very
during
cool.
the month of June. So it's 4 hours. You ask question and I answer on Twitter. So if people have more question or more technical question, that will be an opportunity for them to get answers.
So if you're watching this, go check out Integrity's Twitter. They will be doing this in the month of June, as you said. So look out for it. Get your questions answered by our guardian himself over Twitter. If you don't have anything else, man, I want to say thank you again for being here, and I look forward to a QA with Integrity. Chat, let's hype up the chat with some emotes. Say thank you to Agari for being here. I learned a lot from you. And if you're late to the interview and you want to watch it, it'll be on YouTube sometimes this week. Thank you so much, man. And I hope to see you soon.
Thanks for everything. Bye-bye.
See you, man. What an awesome interview. That was very, very well done, I think, personally, from his answers at least. He had some really, really good answers, and the way he addressed some of their questions and answered them were very thought through, I felt like, by putting him on the spot, especially. Yeah, let's go, and I want to end it today. I think I'm done for the day with my streams. We've been on for what, about 2 hours? How long has it been? 2.5 hours, maybe? Yeah. Oh, shit. All right, 2.5 hours almost. We're going to go raid somebody else. So if you want to stick around, we're going to raid a Nahomi and a good friend. Next week I will have Yobert Abma, co-founder of HackerOne and also a great bug bounty hunter and security researcher. If you want to join and ask him questions, same time as today, next week. Other than that, I am done for today. I'm going to be live again on Tuesday at 11 o'clock, 11:30-ish. If you want to come and join me, let's go raid Superhero. Let's show him some love. When we get to that, let's spam him with some NahamSec emotes. And if you are a Twitch Prime member, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button for me. I'd appreciate it. It'll be free. So if you have Amazon Prime, make sure you link your Twitch and your account with Amazon so you can get a free subscriber to either me or any of your free content creators out there on Twitch. Other than that, I'm done for the day. Thank you for all the new followers. Thank you for all the new subscriptions. Everybody that was on here, I appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much. I will talk to you on Tuesday. And if we don't talk before then, hit me up on Discord. I'm out. See you guys. Peace.